One of the challenges of being self-employed is when I am dealing with this big project, nothing else gets done, you know? And now the project's done, but I just can't take my eyes off of it. I think it looks awesome. And it just seems like it's been here forever. It is just great. When I think of putting a roof over something, I'm thinking of this, guys. It reminds me of, do you remember the TV show Survivor Man? And they would take him out into the jungle and just dump him off, and he would film himself surviving. And I remember when he would camp at night, he would make like a hut for him to live in. And he put that roof over his head. He says, having a roof over your head just changes everything. And I have to agree with him. This just makes everything nice. And I love the way it just showcases the 405. It looks great, but it's also very practical. It keeps the machine out of the weather. It keeps me out of the weather. I like it a lot. But while I could stand around and just look at this beauty, I got work to do. And just because of this, you know, I've lost 5 days, I think now total of production, which I'm not going to lose sleep over. I just accept the fact. Sometimes I can do firewood. Sometimes I can't. But I got to put everything back together. I had dug out the ground so that we made sure the carport was level. So I got to push all of these grindings back into place. And I have to put the live deck back into place. And this is going to be the biggest affected part of my production, because when I was putting these extra long logs on the live deck, they would overhang sometimes as far as the machine. So that's come to an end for me now. My production is going to change. I'm going to have to cut these logs short so that they don't tip off the table until the day I can get like a wider live deck. Because Japa makes these 3-strand live decks, they're a lot wider, and I can cheat the log to the far side where it will clear these uprights and not bang into them as I'm feeding them to the infeed. I also have to bring the baskets. I moved them out of the way for this construction of the offcuts in my kindling, and I need to fork them right in here and here. And that was the whole thing I was worried about. It just seems logical for this carport to have been facing this way with the legs here in front. And yes, I could have forked through them, but it just seemed like this is just the better way for it to go. And it especially opened up the back. I was worried about how these legs were going to be in the way of the perfect clean conveyor and where the tub was going to sit. It just, every time I took measurements, it wasn't going to work. But now that it's set up like this, I love it. I could really get technical about these carports, guys, but the more I talk about it, it would just be over your head. People ask me, Joe, why did you make that 12 feet off the ground? Well, I wanted a carport that we could all look up to. I really love the crew, though, that built this thing, and they spoke very highly of K&K and Reliable Metal Buildings. They said much better than where they used to work before. At that place, they felt that their job was always up in the air. I was thinking about accessorizing, guys, putting a deck up on the roof. I could put my barbecue grill up there, but I just didn't want to raise the stakes. And certainly I'm trying to save money with this, guys. I was thinking about putting a chimney through there, but man, it would have been through the roof. And that crew, man, they worked through the rain to put this thing up. And I was going to show them my appreciation afterwards and take them out to dinner. But where do you take roofers? And they said, well, they're both unmarried, so let's go to a shingles bar. So we did. And I'm going to tell you what, when we went into that place, those two guys, they raised the roof. I hope I can just push this back into place, but I'm probably going to have to mess with it a lot. I got this soft ground here now, and the forks aren't long enough, and I don't think my machine's strong enough to pick this up all by itself, so let's just work around it. I can move this live deck wherever I want, so I still have to get it in position, but this is what I'm looking at. The low point of the hourglass rollers should be right in the center of the infeed. But the big deal is, how close can I get this live deck to the infeed? Having a big valley like this makes it hard when you're feeding it, and I've experienced that too with short logs. They can fall off easy. So you don't want it to be too far, but if I get it too close, then I'm going to lose all of the overhang that I can have on these logs that I want to keep long. So this is just going to be a trial and error. I'm going to get this table set to where I think it will work. I'll run a couple loads with it, and then we'll make up our mind if we need to move it again. It is still a little off, so I'm going to swing the back end of it around more, and then we'll just pull it back. I think we're getting close. I still think I want my live deck farther away from the infeed, and then we'll just see how I can live with this big of a gap. I think when it was originally set up, it was in closer than this. So this will be interesting, but it's got to happen. I think that looks good, guys. The big deal for me, though, come here. I got a big gap in between here, and I don't know how this is going to work. I had heard that they'll make like a tripod, kind of like a big jack stand with a roller on it to like span this gap. I don't know. We'll see if this is actually going to work. This is really far away from the infeed, however. But you see what my challenge is. I'm trying to move this farther away so that I can have more space for more overhang for my logs. But I think the bottom line is I'm going to have to do a better job cutting them in half and just running shorter logs on the live deck. The live deck has two loops on it, one for the roller and one for the infeed chains. Well, I've already found the other problem, guys. The hydraulic lines aren't going to be long enough. I could probably reroute this one behind the leg. Let's see if that gets us any extra distance. Okay, so I could get it to go, but it's also up in the air. And I think that's an accident waiting to happen. It's a trip, but if the log falls on it, it can just rip it right off the machine. So I'm going to have to get me a inline extension so that this will fit. Nothing seems to be easy these days. Let's test the other lines, see if they're long enough. And they kind of are. Okay, not ideal, but I think you see what we're up against here. The bottom line, guys, I'm gonna have to move the live deck closer until I can get me some extensions. I can run these lines out farther. The one line, the return, is not long enough. So let me get the tractor. I will have to push the live deck towards the machine a little bit more because I just feel like making firewood today. Okay, we still have a dangly here, but it is connected, but I just don't like that being up in the air like that, so I'm going to push the deck in a little bit closer. That's going to have to do for now, guys. I am not excited about this gap. It's very close. You know, I knew it was going to be close, but now that I see it, it's kind of impactful. The butt end of these logs, man, and you know, there's always, they get turned a little bit, and I don't want to be running into this beautiful carport right now, right at the very beginning. But I'm gonna have to deal with this until I can get a wider live deck. Just to show you, I used to have the butt end of these logs, I mean, they would be over this far sometimes just to balance them so that they wouldn't tip off the table. That allowed me to put on a longer log. It was easier to do. I wouldn't have to cut the logs in half. So I'm just gonna have to cut the logs in half. And that means that a table full of logs now will be a smaller yield into the trailer because, you know, I won't have all of this overhang now. I'll be putting, one log will now equal 2 on the live deck, and it will get filled up a lot. And that means I'll be putting less wood total on the live deck for each run. So we have the live deck in place, but let me fork these baskets over so I can take the forks off this tractor. But that's it, guys. We got the world-class firewood processor under a beautiful carport. And we have the live deck in place. It's hooked up. I'm ready to get it loaded up with logs, and we are ready to start making firewood. I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for hanging out for this entire project. It means a lot. I hope everyone has a great day. They are a lot better than the company that he used to work for. He felt like his job was always up in the air. Okay, you're doing a good job not laughing.